Jackie Rabinowitz, the latest in a long line of Jewish cantors, is expected to take his father's place as cantor in his local synagogue when his father passes away. But Jackie is not interested in singing religious songs. He wants to sing songs in a big show. So he runs away from home to become Jack Robin, jazz singer. He becomes infamous in nightclubs for his beautiful voice, but as the years pass and Jackie finds himself heading back home, he has to reconcile his commitments to his family and his traditions as Jackie with his dreams and aspirations as Jack. That plot synopsis might not sound immediately familiar to you, but you've probably heard the title of today's movie, The Jazz Singer. Why? Because it's famous for being the first talkie. In an era where most films were silent, The Jazz Singer was the first film to sync audio and video for some dialogue sequences, though by and large it remained a silent movie. And even though this was, for all intents and purposes, a silent movie, and even though many other silent films would come after Jazz Singer pretty much spelled the end of the silent film era. It used to be number 90 on AFI's Top 100 list, it was dropped for the revision, and I mean, yeah, you really can't talk about great influential films in American cinema without talking about The Jazz Singer, so let's take a look and see what's all the fuss about.
Do you follow me?
Not really. Fight in here. This is shoot your eye out, kid.
Why is the run go so serious? Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet. Wait a minute, I tell you. You ain't heard nothing. You want to hear Toot Toot Tootsie? All right, hold on. No, listen. Play Toot Toot Tootsie. 3 choruses, you understand? And the 3rd chorus, I whistle. Now give it to him hard and heavy. Go right ahead.
There aren't many films on this list that date from the silent film era, but there are a few, and this is one of them. At this point in history, films had to rely pretty much solely on visuals to tell their story. I mean, yeah, they had title cards, but those can only take you so far, and by and large, audiences didn't go to a movie to read, they went to a movie to watch. And The Jazz Singer, like I said before, really isn't all that different. For all that it's hailed as the first talkie, it really is essentially a silent film. In addition to the various musical numbers where we do hear actual singing from people, there are only 2 moments where the dialogue is actually synced up with the video and we get to hear people speaking. And it doesn't seem like much now, but at the time it was a big deal. It didn't matter that the rest of the movie contained the usual title cards, we got to actually hear Al Jolson speak and sing.
Hello. I would be remiss in my duties as editing Matt if I did not point out that even though Hatter says we as though he was actually there at the time, he was not.
But what about the story itself? Well, it's not half bad either. Actually, in a way, it's kind of perfect for this movie. It's one of those story archetypes that's become timeless. The older generation being stuck in the past and the younger generation trying to move on towards the future. Jackie's father wants him to do what the men in their family have always done, but Jackie wants to pursue his own dreams. And I don't know if it was an intentional choice for this movie that would end up changing the way movies are done, but it works. In fact, it's kind of like Toy Story in that way, reconciling the past with the future. The movie is based on a stage play called The Day of Atonement, which presumably was not silent, and one of the great things about silent films is getting to watch just how much the actors express with their expressions and their body language. Even if you have the dialogue, you still can't hear their voice, and so these movies simply have to be visual. Al Jolson is wonderfully expressive, as well as vocally talented, and so is the rest of the cast. You really do feel something for these characters, even the ones you don't agree with. So what's all the fuss about? Well, it's kind of obvious in this case. The audio. Like I said, the audio occurs during the musical numbers. Even the 2 dialogue sequences that everyone makes a fuss over occur during or between musical numbers just to keep the flow going. And it really does seem like many of the choices that the movie makers made during this film were intentional. Like they knew that this film was going to be a big deal. Like the fact that the first real line of spoken dialogue that we hear is, "You ain't heard nothing yet." I mean, come on. They had to know. Or the fact that all of the audio syncing occurs during the song, which is the subject of the discord between the father and the son. Or even the use of blackface, which is used in this case not for comedy like it typically was, but as a symbol of the duality between Jackie and Jack, the boy of tradition and the man looking towards the future. And of course there's the subject matter itself, a movie about change which itself is changing the whole field of cinema. Silent movies didn't die out immediately after The Jazz Singer was released, but this was the beginning of the end as everyone started latching on to this new technology. And just like other influential and groundbreaking films, it's easy to see why this movie made the list. And in a way, it's kind of a shame to see it dropped from the list revision. This film marked the beginning of the end of silent films, and they soon became largely obsolete because of it. And now other and newer groundbreaking films seem to have made this movie obsolete. Despite it being dropped from the list though, I hope that movie-going audiences don't forget it. It's a good movie, and like the story that it's telling, it represents a balancing act between the ways of the past and the ways of the future. If you've never seen The Jazz Singer, and I would imagine that a lot of you have not, go find it and check it out. The fuss is definitely merited, and on the worth meter, I'd give this a worth owning. And in our next episode of What's All the Fuss About, we'll be looking at a film that's really, really hard to pronounce. The Sixth Sense. I got it. See you then. Oh, and by the way, if y'all want an update on how the Books vs. Movies Review musical is coming along, check the link in the doobly-doo.